What makes an effective communicator? Is it confidence? Is it clarity? Is it conciseness, or maybe an engaging answer? Well, that's what I'll be sharing in this video. So if you struggle with this, then this is the right video for you. I'm Amri Celeste, an interview coach and HR recruitment specialist. This is a competency-based question. So it's almost definitely asked in a role that is linked to communications in some way. Now, it might not simply be a role in communications itself, like a communications manager. It could also be for a role like a team leader, a management role, a leadership position, even sales or customer service or reception. All of these roles require effective communication in order to have an impact and to support either your colleagues, your team, your clients, customers, or the company effectively. You can check out this competency-based interview questions and answers video where I cover some more of these types of questions. So I'll link that in the video description below. Now look out for the following variations of this question, because interviewers don't always directly ask what makes an effective communicator, but you can use the same or a very similar answer, whichever format this question pops up in your interview. So as well as what makes an effective communicator, they might also ask, what is your communication style? How would you describe effective communication? How do you communicate effectively? What makes a good communicator, or what makes a great communicator? What does communication mean to you? Or what does it mean to communicate effectively? To be fair, it could be any question about communication skills, good communication, or effective communication in the workplace. So look out for those question alternatives. Now, a couple of things to avoid with this. One is not being prepared for this question. So if you've been invited to a job interview that fits any of those categories that I just mentioned, then you should be thinking about what effective communication is before your interview. So let's look at an example answer and how to structure an answer to this question. So you should structure your answer in 4 parts. So part 1 should just be a short, simple beginning. So here you're just laying the groundwork. Then part 2 of your answer is more specific on related skills that make you a great communicator. So part 3 of your answer is where you do a deep dive on a key skill or the most important skill of communication. And part 4 is where you include an example. Now, I know that the interviewer might not be asking you for an example, but if you actually want the interviewer to remember you after you leave, include examples, so they don't just need to take your word for it when you say, I communicate great. They can actually be the judge themselves from your example and see you and imagine you in that situation themselves. So here's part 1. I think to be an effective communicator, you need a combination of skills. You need to be able to convey and share information that may sometimes be complex or technical in a way that's easily understood by others. So in this first part of the answer, you're laying the groundwork, as I mentioned earlier, because you've said that a combination of skills is required. So the interviewer is aware that you're then going to go on to likely break down multiple skills, and they won't stop you part way. And it's a nice, short, easy explanation that if you had to give a 10-second answer, that would work well on its own. But of course, I want to give you an answer that blows your interviewer away so that you get an offer. So the main thing with this first part is answering the question directly. So don't give a long explanation and hold the answer hostage until the end. Start by addressing the main core point of the question. So here's the next part. I think being clear and concise is key. For me, clarity is ensuring that you're not communicating unnecessary information and sharing what is most important and impactful for the listener, avoiding the urge to interrupt or sidetrack the conversation, and having the ability to navigate difficult discussions by remaining calm and respectful, even when emotions are running high. I think this is particularly important in a professional setting. If you're getting value from this video so far, do click like. It's a huge help to the channel and it helps this video to show up for more people on YouTube. So there are other ways that you can support the channel in the description box below this video. You can buy me a coffee and I've included a link to that in the description below. Now, this second part of the answer digs a little deeper and demonstrates to the interviewer that you have an in-depth understanding of the various facets of communicating effectively. So there's conciseness and not interrupting, staying on track, staying respectful and professional, and at the end, you've linked it to a work setting, which would be a huge advantage in a job interview because, of course, the role itself will be at work. So all of that is included in that second part of the answer. Now, I highly recommend that you include something that is related to the role you're interviewing for. So, for example, let's say it's sales. You might want to include that an effective communicator listens and asks the right questions, because you can't sell to someone if you don't know what they want. So most sales training starts with asking questions. So that's the kind of thing that you want to include in your answer to make it hyper specific to the role that you're interviewing for. And you can link your answer to the job description. So sticking with the sales theme, if we look at this job description here, just an example job description that I've created, the very first essential skill, it's clear, concise communication and a professional manner. Now, if you're going to a job interview, then you would have read the job description beforehand. So you would incorporate this into your answer when you're answering a question like what makes an effective communicator. If you struggle with interview questions and answers, you can get your free guide below covering the top 20 interview questions and answers. It's packed with example answers and interview tips for your job interview to take your interview skills up a couple of levels. It includes answers to difficult questions like what is your greatest weakness and why should we hire you? And it also covers what to ask your interviewers at the end of your interview. It's totally free and you can get yours by clicking the link in the video description below. So the next part of your answer will be dedicated to one particular skill, because in some communication-based interview questions, this skill that I'm about to cover is what the interviewer is listening out for. But of course, you don't want to make your answer too long. So take the parts of the example that I'm sharing and use only what's relevant to you. So the next part is about listening. So many candidates forget to say this when they're talking about strong communication or effective communication, and it's critical. So the next part is, the biggest part of being an effective communicator is listening. Although communication is active participation, being an active and attentive listener is just as important. I feel that being open to listening, dialogue, and being able to pay attention to nonverbal cues is as critical as being able to deliver a clear message. For example, is the other person making eye contact? Do they seem engaged? Sometimes nonverbal cues convey more than what the other person actually says. So that third part of the answer absolutely powers your answer, because listening, as I mentioned before, is one thing that managers are, sometimes they're listening out for it and they're disappointed that candidates don't include this in their answer when they're answering this question. So do include listening in your answer in some form. So in answer to what makes an effective communicator, so far, these are the points that you can include in your answer. So we've got clarity, conciseness, listening, being understood and paying attention to non-verbal cues, remaining calm and respectful. And in this last part, we're going to include catering to different learning styles with an example of a time when you communicated effectively. So this is where you demonstrate in your interview that you are an effective communicator. So an example always takes your answer up a couple of levels, because it's easier for the manager to remember, because it's storytelling. It's telling a short story, and it takes the manager out of the interview and into a situation where they can visualize what you're talking about. So the last part of the answer here is, I can share an example of a time when I communicated in a way that I felt was effective. I had to put together a presentation on industry compliance issues in human resources, not the most interesting topic. So I wanted to make sure that the topics catered to different learning styles. So the message was communicated clearly to everyone. I included short interactive quizzes for those who learn by doing. I included a short video for auditory learners. For visual learners, I included information in the form of graphs and lists. And for note-taker learners, I included a transcription and short homework so they could write down notes and ideas. So this last part will supercharge your answer. It's a solid example answer you can use, or something similar where you adapted materials to ensure that you were communicating effectively, whichever is most relevant to what you've done. Now, I hope this was helpful. Do click like if it was, and I'll see you in the next video.